Between 1942 and 1977, over a span of 35 years, one man was struck by lightning 7 times and survived. Roy Sullivan, a park ranger at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, USA, was recorded in the Guinness Book of Records as the person most frequently struck by lightning and survived, but this record became a curse rather than a glory. People called him the human lightning rod and feared him, and eventually he ended his own life in extreme isolation and loneliness. This incredible true story, which occurred with odds lower than 1 in 4.5 billion, begins now. In April 1942, at the vast Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, there was a man named Roy Sullivan who worked as a park ranger. He was an ordinary civil servant. Every morning he woke up early to patrol the forest, worked at fire lookout towers, and was a diligent employee responsible for the safety of visitors. But on that day, his life changed completely. One afternoon, when dark clouds covered the sky, Roy was on duty at the lookout tower as usual. He could hear thunder in the distance, but he thought he was safe inside the tower. But at that moment, a blinding flash and tremendous shock struck him. Lightning had hit the tower. The lightning traveled down the metal structure of the building and passed through his leg. Roy collapsed unconscious and only woke up much later to discover that one of his toenails was gone. The powerful energy of the lightning had passed through his body and blown off his toenail. He was transported to the hospital and miraculously survived. Even the doctors were amazed. Surviving a direct lightning strike was extremely rare. Roy returned to work after his recovery. His colleagues looked at him with worried eyes, but Roy laughed it off, saying it was something that might happen once in a lifetime. But fate would not let him go. In July 1969, a full 27 years after the first incident, Roy was driving a patrol truck on a road inside the park. The sky was once again filled with dark clouds and it began to rain. He hurried toward the ranger station, but suddenly lightning struck from the sky and hit his truck. The current that flowed through the metal body of the vehicle struck Roy in the driver's seat once again. He lost consciousness and collapsed on the steering wheel, and the truck slid to one side of the road and stopped. When a passing colleague found him, Roy's eyebrows and eyelashes had been completely burned off. Once again hospitalized, he survived. It was the second time. People began to whisper, "How can one person be struck by lightning twice?" But this was only the beginning. In July 1970, just 1 year later, Roy was mowing the lawn in his front yard on his day off. The weather was clear and the sky was cloudless. But suddenly lightning struck from the sky. It was a bolt from the blue. Lightning fell from a clear sky. The third lightning strike found him. This time he suffered burns on his shoulder. When Roy woke up in the hospital, he stared at the ceiling with an expression of disbelief. "Why me?" he asked himself. Neither doctors nor scientists could explain it. Statisticians said the probability of a person being struck by lightning in their lifetime was about 1 in 15,000, but 3 times. Calculated in terms of probability, this was about 1 in 4.5 billion, nearly impossible. In August 1972, Roy was doing paperwork inside the park ranger station building. He thought he was safe inside the building, but lightning found him wherever he was. The fourth lightning strike hit the building, and the current flowed through the wiring and reached him. This time his hair caught fire. Colleagues quickly put out the fire and rushed him to the hospital. He survived again. Now the name Roy Sullivan began to become known nationwide. Newspapers and broadcasts called him the lightning-struck man. People looked at him with curious eyes, but at the same time they were afraid. On August 7, 1973, it was the 5th time. The moment Roy was getting out of his car after finishing his patrol, lightning found him again. This time he suffered severe burns on his leg. When he was taken to the hospital, the medical staff already knew him. "You're here again, Mr. Sullivan," a nurse said with a sympathetic expression. Roy began to change. He felt that people were avoiding him. Colleagues were reluctant to go on patrol with him. It was because of the fear that, what if we get struck by lightning while being next to him? Friends also stopped contacting him one by one. On cloudy days, no one wanted to be with him. On June 5th, 1976, the sixth lightning strike hit him. This time he injured his ankle. Roy now became extremely anxious on days when it seemed like lightning might strike. Just looking at the sky made him break out in a cold sweat. Just hearing the sound of thunder made his heart race. He always carried a bucket of water in his car, so that if his clothes caught fire, he could put it out immediately. And then came June 25th, 1977, the fateful day. Roy went fishing. The weather was nice, and it seemed like it would be a peaceful day. But in the afternoon, clouds began to gather. Roy was anxious, but he thought it would clear up soon and continued fishing. That's when it happened. Lightning struck from the sky. It was the seventh time. The lightning hit his head and passed through his chest and stomach. His hair caught fire again. But Roy didn't fall. He already had 6 experiences after all. Staggering, he picked up the bucket of water and poured it over his head. After putting out the fire, he walked to his car and drove himself to the hospital. When he arrived at the hospital, the medical staff was shocked. Again, the 7th time? This had now become a medical and scientific mystery. Officials from the Guinness Book of Records came to see him. Roy Sullivan was officially recorded as the person most frequently struck by lightning and survived. But this record was a curse for him, not a glory. People called him the human lightning rod. Those who believed in superstition whispered that he was cursed by the devil. Some said he had incurred God's wrath. Roy became increasingly isolated. He became afraid of meeting people. He was worried that others might get hurt because of him, and it was hard to bear people's fearful gazes. Scientists proposed various theories. Some said he might have a peculiar constitution that generated a lot of static electricity in his body. Others speculated that it might be due to the topographical characteristics of the area where he worked. Shenandoah National Park had a lot of mountainous terrain where lightning struck frequently, but hundreds of other employees working in that area had never been struck by lightning. Why was Roy struck 7 times? No one could provide a clear answer. Roy eventually took early retirement. He could no longer continue working. He lived alone in a small house. His relationship with his wife also grew distant. He gradually fell into depression. He had nightmares every night. He repeatedly dreamed of lightning chasing him and people pointing fingers at him and running away. On September 28, 1983, 71-year-old Roy Sullivan took his own life in his home. The man who survived 7 lightning strikes ultimately could not overcome loneliness and despair. Only a few old colleagues attended his funeral. People felt sorry for his death, but they also seemed somewhat relieved, as if a being that defied the laws of nature had disappeared. Roy Sullivan's story is still talked about today. His record has not been broken yet. Scientists still cannot fully explain this phenomenon. Some say it's simply a series of extremely unlucky coincidences. But can we simply call a probability lower than 1 in 4 or 5 billion a coincidence? Roy's story makes us think about many things. That sometimes there are things in the world that cannot be explained, and how we should treat people who experience things we cannot understand. Roy could have been treated as a hero, as an indomitable person who overcame 7 deaths. But reality was different. People feared him, avoided him, and ultimately left him alone. Even today, lightning strikes at Shenandoah National Park, and the park rangers working there still recall Roy Sullivan's story when thunderstorms come. They look up at the sky and wonder, does lightning really fall randomly or does it choose someone? This is the story of a man who survived being struck by lightning 7 times, but ultimately could not overcome life itself.